Moi mai e Horomia, ma haere, haere, haere atu rā.
Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, first to the family and the wider iwi of Parekura, welcome to this place and thank you for dignifying this tribute to Parekura from us by your presence. And thank you also for the great generosity that you showed us when we came to pay our tribute and respects to Parekura on the marae last week. It was one of those occasions that will live in certainly my memory, and I think the others who were part of the party forever. Your generosity was quite outstanding, and I felt guilty that I'd heard on the Wednesday night that you had so far consumed 400 crayfish at the tangi for thinking that if that's the case, perhaps I better be there. The truth is, I held Pari in the highest of regard and with the greatest of respect. I didn't know him as many of you did, as the father, the grandfather, the brother and the family member and part of your closer iwi community. I only knew him for his time here in Parliament. And during that time, I think all of the comments that have been made about him and about his personality, I would have to agree with. He was one of those very warm people who could articulate an argument in his favour without being in any way vindictive, without any degree of vehemence, with simply a desire to stick to the issues and to respect individuals for their own beliefs. And many people have, over the last few days, talked about Pari's particular style of speaking and his use of the language, both te reo and English. And I have to say that we experienced that here quite a lot. His way of answering questions when he was a minister was truly unique, and you heard a little bit of that when the circumstances of his answering a question, the Honourable Winston Peters, was repeated. The truth is, there were many times he gave answers that no one could take a point of order on because no one had a clue what he had said. And it was only for fear that you might be made to look foolish that you stayed quiet. So quite a successful tactic. He also spent most of his time here as a minister, quite a unique thing as well. And for many years, I was sitting in one of those seats over there and he was over here. And he had this habit of, during the prayer, holding his hands here, his head down, one eye shut and the other eye roving around the house. And if you happened to see this activity, he would send you a note to say, I noticed you didn't have your eyes closed during the prayer. That's most disrespectful. He had this wonderful way also of quite often sending notes across the house to myself and Simon Power, who we shared a bench on either side of the house for about 8 years. And there was a particular occasion during the very heated debate around the foreshore and seabed, the second bill that we promoted when we came into government. And Pari was very passionate about those things, and he had fought very hard for his party and for the position. And no one could doubt his genuine belief in what he was committed to, and he was obviously opposed to what we were doing. But during the debate, one of the colleagues on this side of the House gave an impassioned speech in which he said words to the effect that the Almighty God had created the foreshore and seabed for the enjoyment of all New Zealanders. Well, Pari saw Simon and I sitting here and sent us over a note very, very quickly that said, Jerry, Simon, tell that fool God's a woman and he's giving it all to the Maori. She is giving it all to the Maori. And I think, the other point I'd just like to say is that when you spoke with Pari, he was always just a person who made you feel very comfortable in his presence. And that's an interesting thing because he didn't have any airs and graces and he didn't accept any airs and graces. And I think that is what will be missed most about him from my perspective. I first met him when I was a brand new MP back in about 1997, I think, at a select committee where he was presenting at a financial review as the person who was in charge of the community employment group. And anyone who knows how that works, people come in and they sit at the end of the table and they're generally invited to make a few opening comments, and then there's a series of questions. Well, Pari's comments went on for quite some time, and I've been warned before that this man was somewhat of a jargonaut. So his speech or his comments were full with macros and micros and matrices and analysis and synergies and paradigms. A wonderful story, beautifully articulated, but left you somewhat perplexed as to what exactly it was about. So I very boldly asked him, I said, very well, Mr. Horomia, but what does it mean? And he said, oh, well, Chief, it means we've done a good job. And on that note, can I simply say, Pari, you've done a good job.
Catherine Delahunty.
He mihi nui ki te tangata whenua o